Gone Global. Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, it's that man, Julian Assange, again, the guy that's been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012, the founder of WikiLeaks, the organisation that have published many documents, many government documents, to huge embarrassment, particularly of the US government, repeatedly. Now, why is he there? Why is he holed up in an embassy? Well, because back in 2012, the Swedish government issued a European arrest warrant for him to be sent to Sweden to face some charges, some sexual allegation charges. He was considered to be a flight risk. He was therefore bailed in this country. But he effectively jumped bail by going into the Ecuadorian embassy. Why did he do all of this? Was it Sweden he was frightened of? Well, the truth is, not particularly. What he has feared for some time is that the United States of America would extradite him there because he's released everything from Hillary Clinton's emails to all sorts of embarrassing documents, and perhaps the real kicker, a document about the CIA explaining that they have the ability to break into people's Android phones, iPhones, and that actually, down the line, they could even use smart TVs in your home to listen to what you're talking about. So it's always been extradition to America that he's feared. Now, he's quite keen to leave after 6 years being stuck in those rooms, and of course, I went to visit him, famously, which has now become part of a great big new conspiracy. In fact, according to testimony given recently, I was a regular visitor. It was said by an American commentator, some think I'm going to be arrested the next time I set foot on US soil. Others think that I was really acting as the runner, the bagman between Donald Trump and Julian Assange. Acres of print news on this. All of it, I can tell you, total and utter baloney. I went to see him once. I went to see him, actually, because LBC organised the meeting. The idea was maybe I would do an interview with him. And I did have some sympathy over the European arrest warrant. It is something I've been opposed to right from the very start. I don't think people should be extradited from countries without at least some prima facie evidence being put on the table. That doesn't make me a total fan of WikiLeaks. In fact, in some cases, if you're releasing government secrets, and particularly if they cover areas of security, the military, you could actually be putting, intelligence agents from countries at real risk. You could be giving the enemy a heads up on what you're trying to do. So, I've had reservations about some of the things the WikiLeaks have done, but I do think that what happened today wasn't particularly fair. So what did happen was, Senior District Judge Emma Arbuthnot at Westminster Magistrates Court said that he basically will not be able to walk out of the Ecuadorian embassy without the British police picking him up because he's jumped bail. Now, in response to this, and bear in mind, a final judgment on this will not come until next Tuesday, and there are more points of law to consider. But let's just hear what Jennifer Robinson, one of Julian Assange's legal team, said outside Westminster Magistrates Court today.
Mr. Assange remains willing to answer to British justice in relation to any argument about breach of bail, but not at the expense of facing injustice in America. This case is and has always been about the risk of extradition to the United States, and that risk remains real. Nobody can credibly deny that risk. We've had the head of the CIA declare WikiLeaks a hostile non-state intelligence agency. We've heard the US Attorney General say that prosecuting Julian Assange is a priority. In these circumstances, it is time to provide an assurance against extradition so that this untenable situation can end.
So jumping bail is ostensibly what the police would pick him up for if he steps out into the street in Knightsbridge. But, and this is what I think is really, really unfair, the UK government refuses to confirm or deny whether there is an extradition request against him from the United States of America. Namely, does he get taken to a police station in the West End and the next day put on a flight to the USA? Mr. Assange is not keen to be taken in to the American judicial system. And I can't say that I blame him, and much as I'm critical of the European arrest warrant, I think that in some ways I'm even more critical of the extradition treaty that the Labour government signed up with the Americans. A friend of mine was actually deported under this treaty, and again, you can be taken off to America without, even as a British citizen, you can be taken off to America without any evidence having to be provided at all. And that strikes me as being fundamentally wrong. So this isn't so much tonight, folks, about whether you think Julian Assange is a good guy or a bad guy, but it is about whether you think the UK judicial system are being fair to him. And if you think, yep, absolutely, he's a bad guy, he's published all these state secrets, he's broken bail, he deserves everything that's coming to him, then call me on 0345 6060 973. Or perhaps you think, certainly as far as bail is concerned in this country, that he's pretty much served his time after 6 years in those buildings, then text to 84850. Or maybe you think, actually, it's perfectly reasonable for him to be extradited off to the United States of America, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can watch me on Facebook. I'm live here in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. So, there was all sorts of people that worked for the American Security Services, Bradley Manning, etc., and huge files, outlining a lot of America's intelligence work was sent to WikiLeaks and put out. Vast files of Hillary Clinton's emails were sent to WikiLeaks. Apparently, I gave him the memory stick. That's according to the crackpot left-wing conspiracy theories. And WikiLeaks started back in 2006, and still today, it does publish all sorts of information that gets sent to it. Now, I am not someone that thinks jumping bail should be taken lightly. And there are one or two people very critical of him. I mean, Mikey says to me already by text, not only has he jumped bail, but his cowardice and vanity has cost the UK millions. Well, certainly the cost of policing all of this has been very great indeed. But I ask you, Mikey, would you want to be extradited off to the USA? And wouldn't it be fair and reasonable, given where we are today, for the UK government to say whether they've got that request or not? Because they've steadfastly refused to do that today. On Facebook, Jane says, "Free Assange, the man in the embassy. He has served his sentence being stuck in that place for all this time." Well, I have to say, the thought of 6 years being stuck in 2 or 3 rooms is pretty grim indeed. So, as I say, I am not a total defender of everything that WikiLeaks has done. Although, the principle that we need transparency between a state and a citizen is not of itself an unreasonable one. But I do think, actually, that the UK government ought to be a bit straighter and a bit fairer with him, given where we are right now. I wonder what Desmond, who's calling from Camden, makes of this. Good evening, Desmond.
Good evening to you, sir. I think he's done the world a great service. And whilst I don't like him very much as a person from what we see, we cannot trust the Americans to do the right thing. They have a record of mendacity. I've talked to you before how they've gone from being heroes in my generation to being thoroughly mistrusted today. And if you look back on what they did, the war in Vietnam, which was started on the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where they faked up the fact that they were under attack from Vietnamese boats and used that in Congress to justify armies landing. Many other things they've done. We cannot trust them. We need people like Julian Assange to investigate and to show the light of honesty and truth. Just showing the emails was a worthwhile thing to assist the world in looking at Hillary Clinton for what she was and what we potentially could have had as a president.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of irony here, Desmond, isn't there, that whilst the US authorities, we understand, are keen to have him taken over and detained, that there are elements, of course, of the Trump camp who are probably very grateful for the leak of those Hillary Clinton emails, and as you say, telling the world perhaps a bit more about her. Desmond, I understand the point you're making, but are there circumstances in which very important security knowledge should not be published?
Obviously there are, but at the moment we cannot trust the governments. We can't trust this one very much. They might be good people, but their competence is not really very highly rated at the moment. And we certainly cannot trust what they're doing in America. And their fingers are on the nuclear button.
I mean, two of the big files that WikiLeaks and Assange released were, of course, the Edward Snowden files and the Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning files. Yes. I mean, they were. You could argue, I think, Desmond, that in many ways these were military secrets.
Yes, and you can't give away lightly military secrets, but surely you, as a politician, if you knew something that was material to world safety, regardless of whatever you'd signed or whatever you'd promised, you would feel bound to disclose it.
Well, of course, Desmond, that's the other argument, isn't it? That governments can do bad things, and if they're exposed, that's a good thing for freedom and the rest of the world. Desmond, I understand that point. Finally, do you think the UK government, the UK court today, and what you heard, are behaving in a fair manner?
They've got to uphold the court. The court must have power, otherwise there will be chaos. But they should have a direction from the government as to what we want to have done with this man.
Should they not, surely, Desmond, in all fairness, tell him whether the American authorities have given an extradition request?
Yes.
I think so too. Desmond, I think so too. Thank you for your call. And Desmond, who's very suspicious of America and says in his eyes they've gone from heroes to zero. You're listening to me exclusively on LBC. It's now 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
The opportunity to put your calls and questions to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police here in London, Cressida Dick. Jim's in Broxbourne.
The trials that have recently collapsed due to failure to disclose, is it down to a lack of resources or individual officer incompetence?
But I'm absolutely clear, my officers do act fairly, they do act impartially. There are ever-increasing amounts of digital media that the officers have to look at. You can't do something for nothing, so I will have to move resource from another area. The primary thing we must do is act fairly and bring people to justice.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Apparently, there are still some people who say they don't want to apply for an Ocean credit card. That's amazing, because there's a credit limit of up to £1,500. Text so you keep control of your spending, and you can see if you'll be accepted before you apply at checkocean.co.uk without affecting your credit rating. But I know the real reason people say they don't want to apply, because they've already got one. To apply for an Ocean credit card, go to checkocean.co.uk. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
Crikey, the boiler's gone again. Cold showers. Oh, I'll have to get someone round and tidy up and get better biscuits. I've only got malted milk. I can't have no shower. I've got Zumba on Wednesday. Relax. Relax. It's Trust a Trader. Bloomin' lovely tradespeople who do the job right. You pop in your postcode and find great tradespeople right on your doorstep. Oh, he's here. Get the party rings out. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. You're the only one who truly understands me. My biggest cheerleader and my closest friend, who always laughs at my jokes, however bad. So happy Valentine's Day. Pickle.
Don't forget the flowers. Visit zingflowers.com/Valentines to order a romantic hand-tied bouquet for delivery on the day.
Zing Flowers. Amazing every time.
At Motorpoint, we know life is full of different journeys. Short ones, long ones, and everything in between ones. So wherever life takes you, we'll help you get there. Our 7,000 low-mileage used cars are all under 3 years old. And with an average saving of £8,500 off the new list price, there's no need to haggle. And you can drive away the same day, even if you're part exchanging. There's a Motorpoint car for every journey. Visit Motorpoint Chingford or motorpoint.co.uk today.
Sangeeta used to dread taking meter readings. Tracking Gaz and Lecky meant going into the gloomy depths of the cupboard under the stairs. Last time she emerged with a sore nose, a bruised elbow, and a fuming temper. Fortunately, Sangeeta has just had a smart meter installed, which sends the readings directly to her energy supplier. And an in-home display shows exactly how much energy she's using, so no more trips to the cupboard. Contact your energy supplier today about getting your smart meter at no extra cost.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Tonight, Julian Assange will still stay in the Ecuadorian embassy because as a result of what was said at Westminster Magistrates Court today, he has not been excused for jumping bail, which he did back in 2012. So if he walks out on the street, he'll be picked up for that. But what he doesn't really know is will he be extradited to the United States of America? Now, Chris says to me by text, I think the UK government should automatically extradite anybody to countries with whom the UK considers they've got fair judicial systems. This should apply to any criminals, including computer hackers and people like Assange. The USA are our most important partners in the world, and refusing to extradite is a slap in the face to them. Chris, I'm going to take issue with you on that. I am vehemently opposed to the European arrest warrant. And by the way, we've had extradition between countries going on for centuries, but I'm vehemently opposed to the European arrest warrant because I watched the case of Andrew Symeou, a citizen from North London, accused of a crime by the Greek authorities, extradited to a Greek hellhole of a prison, left there for a year, and without any charges ever being brought, then released because they realised there wasn't a case against him. You know, come on, we are the country. We are the country of Magna Carta. We are the country that believes in innocence before guilt. We are the country that believes you should be judged by your peers. And we generally, I think, and I'm not saying our system is perfect, but I tell you what, I think I'd rather live, in terms of justice, in the United Kingdom than anywhere else in the world. And that principle should apply to our extradition treaties as well. And the treaty the Labour government signed with the USA, in many ways, not as bad, but worse than the European extradition warrant. I get the point about us needing to work closely with the Americans, but I'm afraid this is a bad treaty, and surely, Chris, they need to be straight with Assange as to whether that's been issued or not. I wonder what Riz, who's calling from Fulham and a new caller to the show, thinks. Good evening, Riz.
Good evening, Nigel. Right, so my main reason for kind of calling is to say that, look, we shouldn't use national security as an excuse for what Julian Assange has done. I think what he's done is a great service to the people in general, because the security service and the secret services, they've kind of subvert democracies in foreign lands, and a lot of the information that you get from people like Julian Assange that is stuff that we as people do not want our governments to do. And if you don't have a person like that out there, then what will happen is the governments will get away with whatever they want, and we need this transparency because, to be really honest with you, civil servants aren't coming forward and they're just going along because it's their job's worth. And they really shouldn't be doing stuff like this.
So in a sense, Riz, you think what he's done is to shine light, effectively, upon how governments operate and how bad they can or could be.
Yeah, I mean, they've been subverting democracies in foreign lands. I mean, this extradition treaty that we got with the US was purely done after 9/11. And this thing that Tony Blair has signed, or the Labour government, as you're saying, but ultimately the buck is with Tony, it's not good for our citizens. And a majority of the innocent people seem to get caught up in these extradition treaties.
Yeah, Riz, I absolutely, no British citizen should be extradited anywhere in the world unless a British court has been presented with some evidence and some charges that man or woman has done bad stuff. I agree with that. Absolutely, totally.
Not with some evidence, with lots of evidence. It has the evidence has to be tangible. You can't just have evidence which is not tangible, right?
No, prima facie evidence that stands up. I would agree with that completely. So, Riz, you feel that Assange has brought transparency to the world, and that's a good thing?
Brilliant. No, exactly. I completely agree with.
Okay, fine. No, you've made that point beautifully and very, very clearly. There's one thing I'm confused about, and that is that Assange was an Australian citizen, not a UK citizen. So how come we can extradite him to either Sweden or America? Please, a lawyer, someone good on this, ring me. I don't know the answer to that question. Howard's asking it of me. I don't know the answer to that question. I wonder what it is. Now, I've got a new caller now who's calling from Baghdad. Rana is on the line. Good evening.
Hi. No, I'm not a new caller, actually. I spoke to you a couple of months ago. I'm not sure if you remember. I told you I'm going to go back to Iraq and I'm going to run in the Iraqi elections.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Yeah. So how do you view Julian Assange?
Oh, I feel nothing in short of gratitude towards him. Everyone I know is a fan of WikiLeaks and WikiLeaks because regularly, as your previous caller has said, regularly governments will engage in activities which are considered inhumane and they will want to conceal. And I think the more these things are exposed to public, the less and less of them we have. And I never believed the rape accusations against him. As for your question, has the British government been fair towards him? I don't think that they have been fair towards him. The fact that he's been locked up in an embassy for 7 or 10 years so far now.
6 years it is, yeah.
For the recent decision. Yeah, I'm glad that now he has a chance to escape and now he has a chance to go back home.
Well, we don't quite yet know the answer to that yet, Rana. As I say, there are more points of law to be heard. There'll be a final ruling on this on Tuesday. Rana, do you think there are limits when it comes to, intelligence of a country? Do you think there are limits to what should be published, or should everything that any government does, if it can be hacked, be put out into the public domain?
Well, obviously there are some secrets which the government will want to strive in order to keep hidden from the public, but it should be for us, the public, to support Julian Assange in terms of wanting to get the more documentary aspects about the crimes or the activities which have violated human rights. Our job is that we want these to be published. Our job is not to side with our government when they try to commit horrific acts or acts in our society to be harmful.
No, fine, you've said that with great passion, and a lot of you actually thinking, that actually he's done the world a favour by publishing all this stuff. He's done the world a favour by saying that the CIA plans to use smart TVs to listen into those of us that it chooses to. Ian says by text, the US is a close ally with an established legal judiciary. If Assange has committed crimes, he needs to face a court of law and account for himself. If he is innocent, he has nothing to fear. Ian, all I would say is I'm a big fan of America, but I'm not a fan of plea bargaining. And you basically finish up. It's virtually impossible in America now today to plead innocent. It's impossible because you're told, OK, if you do that and we go to court, it's going to cost X million in legal fees and your sentence will be 750 years. But, of course, if you want to plead guilty, that's fine, and, you'll serve 5 months and be out. And it's a very interesting point, that America is 5% of the world's population, but has 20% of the world's prisoners. And there is something that is... And it's interesting, isn't it? Because they set up a system with common law. They introduced plea bargaining. 98% of cases police in America take to the courts result in guilty prosecutions. And whenever I hear British politicians saying, we want plea bargaining in this country, no, is what I have to say to that. James says, extradite him immediately. He doesn't want to go to the US, as they will deal with him appropriately, rather than the soft touch that our courts and prisons are. James, he'd probably get 1,000 years in prison, if you think that's appropriately. Steve is calling from Southampton. Good evening, Steve.
Hi, Nigel. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I can see huge passion, Steve, on both sides of this argument. Assange is somebody that does raise those kind of feelings in people, isn't he?
He does indeed, yeah, he does. But I want to make 2 points, really. I want to make 1 point, really. I'm ex-military, and when I was in the military, I was asked to sign the Official Secrets Act, which I'm bound to for life. As indeed, Steve, were those American operatives
Snowden and Manning, weren't they?
Snowden and Manning, yes. But Assange, has he ever signed the Official Secrets Act?
Nope.
Nope. So what are we punishing him for? Because he has just published a load of stuff that was obviously available. I know some people might say it's been hacked, but I would ask the other question about who is responsible. If you're going to have secrets, you need to keep them secret. In other words, you need to have them encrypted. You need to make sure that these secrets, if they get out, they're garbage. They don't mean anything to anybody, which means who is accountable for allowing those secrets to escape in the public? So if Assange has got hold of these publicly, someone is accountable for allowing those secrets to be public in the first place. Who's being punished there?
Well, Steve, I think perhaps the fact is that many of these things that WikiLeaks published were actually stolen. They were actually illegally stolen, and you say Assange had done nothing wrong, but perhaps he's been aiding and abetting a criminal act.
Yes, so they've been stolen, but this is what I'm talking about, Nigel. So even if they've been taken or stolen, or it doesn't matter how they've come about those, though they had a responsibility. Someone had a responsibility to keep those secret.
Isn't it funny, though, Steve? Even in the days when computers weren't even a twinkle in anyone's eye, we had the Cambridge spies in this country photocopying documents and giving them to the Russians. I guess ultimately there's no such thing as a secret, really, is there?
No, that's it. So if you want to keep secret, don't have it on. Don't have it in technology. Don't have it there. No. Have it in a box somewhere in a room where no one's ever going to see it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And Steve, just finally, you really do not believe that Assange is the guilty party here, do you?
Not really, no. So if he's managed to get hold of something public, but at the end of the day, he's done a public service. I'm ex-military, so I understand the need to keep some things secure, right? So you could put people at risk, as you've already pointed out. So I'm half in, half out on it a little bit.
All right,
with Assange, depending on what he's
Thank you for your call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The chairman of Carillion has accepted full responsibility for the firm's collapse last month. The contractor's directors have been facing questions from MPs about its pension crisis and job losses. Taiwan's government says 2 people have died and more than 100 have been injured after a 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck off the island's coast. Pictures from the area show a collapsed hotel and extensive damage to roads. Share indexes in the US remain jittery on another volatile day for stock markets around the world. In the city, the FTSE 100 fell 3.5% on opening before recovering to close 2.6% down. LBC weather, cold and clear for most tonight. Some heavy wintry showers in Scotland, lighter snow in the southeast, in Wales and in the far southwest, a low of -2.
LBC travel on the M1 in Bedfordshire. 2 lanes are closed southbound between Junction 10 for Luton Airport and 9 for Redbourne because of a multi-vehicle accident. On the North Circular Road in East London, an accident's partially blocking the road at the Barking flyover. Queues are solid back to the M11 junction. In Barnes, Upper Richmond Road is crawling at the Red Rover through the temporary lights there, and the Bakerloo line has no service between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. LBC Travel, I'm Paula Brett.
This is LBC.
Crikey, the boiler's gone again. Cold showers. Oh, I'll have to get someone round and tidy up and get better biscuits. I've only got malted milk. I can't have no shower. I've got Zumba on Wednesday. Relax. It's Trust a Trader. Bloomin' lovely tradespeople who do the job right. You pop in your postcode and find great tradespeople right on your doorstep. Oh, he's here. Get the party rings out. Visit trustatrader.com.
Sometimes knowing what to do with your savings can be a little confusing. But with NS&I, you can relax because our new fixed-rate guaranteed growth bonds and guaranteed income bonds give you returns that are guaranteed. You can invest from £500 up to £1 million in each issue for 1 or 3 years. And because we're backed by HM Treasury, every pound is 100% secure. Enjoy peace of mind at nsandi.com. NS&I. Safer savings set you free.
At PlusNet, we say let's hear it for small businesses, the micros that think mega, run by work all day, worry all night warriors. No home life, no love life, no lunch hours or happy hours, only long hours. Our super fast business broadband is for you. Reliable, affordable, with support anytime you need it. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, May Day, May night, whenever, because you guys, you're the future. You make us proud, and you know what? Here at PlusNet, we'll do you proud.
Highways England is here to improve your journey. Have you noticed the red X's above you when driving on the motorway? Think they're not important? Think again. They mean there's an obstruction or danger up ahead. So if you see one, you must change lanes safely to avoid a penalty, or even worse. So when you see a red X, it's there for a reason. For more information on red X's, search online for smart motorways.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Grovely-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
Steering wheel tappers, the 10 and 2s, Sunday drivers and dislikers of queues, beaded chairs, boombox boots, school runners and dashboard drummers, the singers, the seat adjusters, even the sat-nav addicts.
Take the next left. At Esso, we notice every detail. Whatever type of driver you are, remember to scan your Tesco Club card when you fill up at Esso. Esso. Energy lives here. For more information, visit esso.co.uk.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
A judge today says to Julian Assange that because he skipped bail, he will probably be rearrested if he walks out of that Ecuadorian embassy. But that's not the issue. The real issue is the UK government won't say whether they've got an extradition request from the United States of America. I'm asking whether we're being fair as the state to Julian Assange, regardless whether we think he's a hero or a villain. I don't think, I have to say, we're really being very fair. One other thing to talk about, of course, are the stock markets. So there I was today. I came out of the chamber of the European Parliament. Chap came up to me with a recording device. That's fairly used to that, coming out of the European Parliament here. He said, I'm from the New York Times. Oh, yes, I said. He said, do you have a comment on the stock market crash? I said, well, when it went up 30% since Trump was elected, did you ever come and ask me why I thought the US stock market was doing as well as it was? And it crashes 1,000 points, 5%, to put it into perspective. And here you are saying it's the end of the world. And I've even heard in American broadcasters last night, after their news shows, they were out on the town in New York celebrating, having crash parties. That is how much the US liberal media want Trump to fail. Get a sense of perspective. The Dow did fall 5% yesterday. It fell 25% in 2 days back in 1929. And in 1987, and I was there in a city trading room, it fell 20% in 1 day. So we have seen crashes in the past. This market, this American stock market, last year made 85 new highs. So not particularly surprising that it's fallen the way that it has. Always risky to predict what stock markets will do. I don't think you've seen the high on the Dow Jones on this run by a very big margin. But we'll see. I could be right, I could be wrong. Ian says, the US is a close ally with an established system. If he's innocent, Assange, he's nothing to fear. Well, I'm sorry, but in that American system, I think there is quite a bit to fear. Jay is calling from Sloane Square and is a new caller to the show. Good evening.
Nigel, good evening. I'm one of your biggest fans. I bow to no man. But listen, you couldn't be more wrong on this particular issue. I mean, the only thing you're missing is the black balaclava. Here's the deal. The guy, by the release of what he released, put a lot of American lives at risk and probably lost some lives, according to what's been released in the security documents. Yes, you may not like the law, but if he goes to the States, he'll get a fair trial. And and you've said previously, well, it may be a harsh prison, it may be this, it may be that. Well, so be it. What can I say? That's the thing.
Okay.
The only difference between Julian and the folks who throw bricks through windows or threaten candidates like you or do the other stuff is that Julian does it without the mask and has always assumed that he'll never be stopped, and he'll always have the bien passants supporting him. And I just think that now that he's gone to ground for the last 6 years, he's got to be held to account.
Jay, I have not been, a big supporter of WikiLeaks or of Julian Assange, just to sort of set this straight with you. And I have said already tonight, I've said it before, that I do think some of this stuff, particularly some of the stuff from Bradley Manning, etc., some of this stuff has put lives at risk and cost lives. And I agree with you. I think there are limits as to how much of this stuff should get put out. So we're not too far away on that. But can I come back to you about this American system? Jay, you know as well as I do that, okay, prisons are tough, but the point about it is that it's virtually impossible, isn't it? If you try to plead innocent in the system as it currently is, you're told it's going to wipe your family out financially and you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. Do you think, Jay, that the plea bargaining system in America today is really working?
Well, no, you raise a good point, Nigel. The fact is about once the feds bring a case, I think the conviction rates are about 90 or 95%.
Yes.
But that is largely because most of the time they've got the goods on the people. Now, just consider this. Assange, if he goes into court, he will not go in there unaided by volleys and volleys of freebie lawyers that he'll have and other assistants. So he'll get the best defense that can be made for anybody in his situation. If the guy is guilty, and if he has, and to add to that, the evidence will come out. So if he has, the severity of what he's done will be made known. And I think the jury will render a fair verdict. He'll get a jury trial, and the jury will render a fair verdict.
Okay. Should the UK government at this stage tell him whether the Americans have made that request or not?
Oh, absolutely, and absolutely they should. But it should have no bearing on whether or not they continue to hold him, or, in actual fact, if the judge who ruled today wants to pick him up because he skipped bail and cost poor Jemima a bunch of money.
I think she did lose quite badly on this. I think you're absolutely right. Jay, I thank you very much indeed for your call. And as I said to Jay, I have not been cheering at everything WikiLeaks have done over the years. In fact, far from it, because I do personally have reservations about some of this stolen material that maybe, is bad news for Western security. John is calling from Glasgow. Good evening, John.
Nigel, I don't know what he's worried about. He needs to get himself out of that pokey room, get his teeth fixed, have a nice shower, have a nice meal, get himself some new lawyers, because that's obviously the problem, because there's not a cat in hell's chance of him being extradited to the United States. The bail thing, that's a heinous crime in this country. The old bull and the magistrates deserve to get their pound of flesh for that. But given the correlation, which is almost 100%, between the population at large and people who are threatened with extradition to the United States, normally they contract Asperger's syndrome. I don't wish to be flippant, or rude, but it's just a reality.
Yeah, John, I mean, he is clearly a very, very high-profile figure. As far as his teeth and everything are concerned, well, when I went to see him and met him, he didn't seem to be in too bad a nick, considering he'd been holed up there for all that time and without sunlight or anything like that. I mean, one of the things said today by his lawyers is that, there'd been some pretty protracted medical examinations and he was suffering from depression, etc. But do you really think, John, that he comes out of that embassy, he sorts out the bail problem, and if there was an extradition order from the Americans, that the British government wouldn't send him?
There have been umpteen extradition orders from the United States. The whole system has been discredited, Nigel, and I'm just being brutally honest here. How many people who have been threatened with extradition to the United States mysteriously contract Asperger's syndrome compared to the population at large?
Well,
It's just a blunt truth.
I can tell you that retired businessman and friend of mine, Chris Tappin, who was in his late 60s, was extradited to the USA, told me he was absolutely going to plead his innocence, and then realised if he did and finished up losing, he'd bankrupt his family, leave his wife and kids with nothing. So what did he do? He did what people in America do these days. He pleaded guilty, served his time, and came back home. John, you may be right, you may not. Phil says, Nigel, it's Chelsea Manning, not Bradley Manning. Well, I've used both names tonight. It was Bradley Manning, actually, when WikiLeaks published the stuff, and Bradley Manning is now Chelsea Manning. And Phil says, show some respect instead of your latent transphobia. Oh, well, I guess that's the world we live in, but I repeat the point. It was Bradley Manning when WikiLeaks published the material, and it's now Chelsea Manning. You can draw any interpretation you wish on that. I wasn't wishing to cause deep offence to you, Phil, or anybody else. I was just trying chronologically to get this right. Peter says, Mr. Assange is a courageous, brave person with high moral values. The world needs more people like Assange. He is of the same calibre as Mandela. Some American authorities have lied and cannot be trusted. Many innocent people were killed in Vietnam and Iraq, etc. Well, yes, I do get that last couple of points. I don't quite see the comparison to Mandela, I have to say. David says, Nigel, Assange has only himself to blame. He has to understand he is responsible for his own actions. He knew the consequences. And David, that may well be right, but I am asking, are the British government being fair? Should they not declare whether or not there is this arrest, this extradition request in from the American authorities? I think they probably should. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Public Health England says e-cigarettes should be available on prescription because they help so many people quit smoking. But should taxpayers be funding vaping?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Shut the door on routine. Start something new. Power your adventure and unmap your life with the Jeep Renegade from £189 a month. With 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating, touchscreen, Bluetooth, sat-nav and legendary Jeep capability. Visit jeep.co.uk to begin your journey today. Personal contract hire. Jeep Renegade 1.4 longitude manual. Initial rental of £1,134. 48-month term, 8,000 miles per annum until March 31st, 2018. Subject to status. Leases.
I'm a great white shark and I'm come to eat your car.
Oh no, please don't eat me.
I'm come to get you.
Invest time in stuff that really makes you happy. Whether it's playing with the kids or spending time with your partner, you can, as Money Farm is here to look after your other life investments. We use innovative technology and investment wisdom to match you with a portfolio that can help your money grow. We offer general investments and ISAs, all with low fees. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Hello and welcome to Scam or Smart. We'll play 2 investment pitches. You guess which one's a scam. OK, here's the first.
Well, this could offer a good counterbalance to your current portfolio.
Interesting. Now for the second.
This is something that will appeal to a successful investor like yourself.
So, which one's the scam? Well, it was the second pitch. Hard to tell? That's why smart investors always check the warning list from the Financial Conduct Authority. Search Scam Smart.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Sometimes knowing what to do with your savings can be a little confusing. But with NS&I, you can relax because our new fixed-rate guaranteed growth bonds and guaranteed income bonds give you returns that are guaranteed. You can invest from £500 up to £1 million in each issue for 1 or 3 years. And because we're backed by HM Treasury, every pound is 100% secure. Enjoy peace of mind at nsandi.com. NS&I. Safer savings set you free.
Highways England is here to improve your journey. Have you noticed the red X's above you when driving on the motorway? Think they're not important? Think again. They mean there's an obstruction or danger up ahead. So if you see one, you must change lanes safely to avoid a penalty, or even worse. So when you see a red X, it's there for a reason. For more information on red X's, search online for smart motorways.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
When Assange first sought refuge in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy in Knightsbridge, there was a round-the-clock watch by Metropolitan police officers. Now, of course, they haven't got police officers outside there anymore because they've got big security cameras opposite. And, of course, they can see everyone that goes in and comes out, which is why a Senate committee in America being told that, actually, Farage didn't go once. He was a regular visitor to Julian Assange, and of course many saying, including a journalist on the Guardian newspaper, that I am at the centre of a great web here, and I am in fact the bagman. I've been taking the secrets between Trump and Assange, in particular the Hillary Clinton emails. It's a great story. It's just not true in any way at all. Now, Assange is still fighting because every news report, of course, that you've heard today, will tell you what was said at Westminster Magistrates Court, that actually, the charge of jumping bail still has to be answered. But Assange answered this on Twitter by saying, wall-to-wall fake news, stating the government won today's hearing. Nothing of the sort has happened. The hearing is still happening. Only one point has been ruled on. And actually, they are going, over the course of the next few days, to delve more deeply into jumping bail and to see whether they might drop it. So we're going to know more about this next Tuesday, when we will get the final judgment coming out of Westminster Magistrates Court from Emma Arbuthnot. But I wonder, hero or villain? And I do have reservations about some of this material that has been released, but equally, we do need to show up governments if they're behaving badly. It's a difficult one. But I do think the government need to be a little bit fairer with him. Joy in Soho is calling me, a new caller to the show. Good evening, Joy.
Yes, hello, good evening. Hi, Nigel.
Hi. So how do you view Assange?
I'm sorry?
How do you view Julian Assange?
Okay, what I will say is this, that here is a man who has spent 6 years in incarceration under the threat, not protected at all by the UK government, under threat from being sent to the US, under laws which I don't even believe particularly are voted for by the average American citizen today. What I will say about him, I think very firmly what this man has done, whether you agree with him or not, he has added a new layer of democracy, not only to the UK, but globally. And how he's managed to do it through WikiLeaks is that he's added information and communication to people globally that would not have had access or knowledge of any of this information. Now, obviously, some of what he imparted originally was said to be highly sensitive.
Yes.
I agree. I absolutely agree that governments do need to protect what they term as being highly sensitive information. That's absolutely true. Nobody could disagree with that. However, what I will say is that a lot of what he did impart was, I firmly believe, should have been in the public domain. And it wasn't and never would have been, apart from what he did. And all of the reasons why he was incarcerated here in London, in central London, for all of those years, really and truly, it was just to satisfy governments, because they could not deal, they did not want to deal with what the crux of the situation was, which is people have every right in a democracy to know what's actually happening. And
even if, Joy, even if okay, I understand your point about transparency and governments can do good things but bad things too, and I understand that wholly. But how do you feel about the fact that this stuff was effectively stolen from American agencies?
Who was it stolen by, though? Was he the original person that stole it? I don't think he was he?
No, no one suggests that it's Assange himself who directly accessed this. It's people who access it and then use him as a means of putting it out on a wider platform.
The thing is, I don't agree with the fact that things should be stolen at all. What I would go for is that we live in a different world now, and we live in a world where people are actually demanding to be treated as intelligent beings and need access to information. But let's go back to the fact that some things do need to be kept secret, which I absolutely believe that they do, especially when it's dealing with high-level security issues.
But isn't that the problem with Assange? I think the problem with Assange is that in terms of some of this material, I'm not sure he knew where the limits lay, did he?
Well, I don't know whether he knew where the limits lay. What I think I think it's very clear he wasn't doing it for his own material gain. And I think that's something that should be acknowledged. He wasn't making money. He wasn't there a guy, I'm going to sell this stuff, make money from it, like in the old school way that things were done in terms of, within countries, people were selling stuff on and making money out of it. That wasn't at all ever in question about what he did. And I think that should be taken on board. And not only that, what I think is absolutely appalling is the trumped-up charges against him, which first came out regarding the Swedish issue about sexual allegation, which the two women involved in that many years ago, I think, I truly believe I'm right in saying this, they acknowledged that they were sex workers. Now, whatever happened between them, they actually weren't the ones who brought the original charges. So all that has now gone by the by.
I have to say, Joy, that I, looking at that Swedish side of stuff, it did look to be really quite disturbing. The reasons for the issuance of that European arrest warrant did not look right to me either. But Joy, the Cambridge spies. All right, the Philbys and Burgesses and Macleans, people who'd been through Cambridge University, who went to work in the Foreign Office, George Blake, there are many, many others, they stole secrets from this country, they gave them to the Soviet Union. There is no doubt that British agents overseas, MI6 agents, lost their lives directly as a result of what they did. And yet those guys believed, until their dying day, that they were doing the right thing. And yet, I would assume that 99.9% of people listening or watching this now would think they were traitors and did completely the wrong thing. And the point I'm trying to make is that you can do the wrong thing believing you're doing the right thing. And that's my reservation, Joy, about Assange, is I don't think he knows the limits.
I'm not saying he doesn't know or does know or doesn't know the limits. What I will say, in compliance with your statement, is that when people commit an act, whatever the act is, they will always find justification for it. And that's the human condition. People will always justify their stance. What I will say for this man is I think he's being treated very unfairly. He hasn't been given a fair trial in this country. And why should he have been extradited to the US when other people have not, without naming names, have not been under the same jurisdiction that he is now under? That's the part that I find very difficult to understand.
No, okay. No, Joy, listen, you've made those points very, very well indeed. Thank you. Anonymous says to me, how much have we paid so far for the policing? 11.4 million is what we paid for those first few years. 11.4 million pounds for that constant policing outside the Ecuadorian embassy, and now we've put up cameras. No one knows what they've cost. What is he going to do? Leave wearing fancy dress? This type of waste of public funds is what annoys me in so-called austere times. Just one example of the utter misuse of tax funds. Tip of the iceberg, but a public example of waste. Well, I think the 11.4 million probably was wasted. Darren says he is a security risk and should face justice. Well, he's been 6 years inside that Ecuadorian embassy. He's certainly there tonight. I don't know what will happen over the course of the next few days running up to the final judgment on Tuesday. My guess is he will still be there next Tuesday evening. He clearly isn't very keen on going off to the United States of America. I just think the British government ought to be a bit more open about the whole thing. You've been listening to the